The morning sun shone bright over Lincoln Elementary School as three tall, thin figures stepped out of a silver vehicle that made no sound. Professor Zelfin checked his translation device one more time. His two companions, Piptal and Quill, carried recording equipment that looked like small metal boxes with blinking lights. "Remember," Zelfin said to his team, "we are here to learn about Deathworlder education methods. These humans have survived on one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. Their teaching ways might help our own children become stronger." The Zentari were known across the galaxy for their peaceful nature and advanced technology. But they were also known for being weak. Their thin arms could barely lift their own scientific tools. Their legs shook when they had to walk more than a few steps. For thousands of years, they had solved every problem with talking and thinking. Never with fighting or physical action. Humans were different. Humans came from Earth, a planet so deadly that other species called it a death world. The gravity was too strong. The weather was too wild. The animals were too fierce. Yet humans had not only survived, but had spread to the stars in just a few centuries. "The building looks safe enough," Piptal said, looking up at the red brick school. Children's voices could be heard from inside, along with the sound of footsteps and closing doors. "Those are the young humans," Quinnell added, adjusting his recording device. "The data says they spend most of their early years in these education centers before they begin their adult warrior training." Zelfin nodded. That made sense. If human children needed special training to survive on their deadly world, it would start early. He had read reports about human physical abilities. Even their children could run faster and lift more weight than adult Zentari. Their reflexes were quick enough to catch objects thrown at them. Their eyes could track multiple moving targets at once. The front door of the school opened, and a human female walked out. She was shorter than the Zentari, but looked much stronger. Her muscles were easy to see, even through her clothing. This had to be one of their warrior trainers. "Welcome to Lincoln Elementary," the human said with a wide smile that showed her teeth. Zelfin knew this was called a smile, but the sight of human teeth always made him nervous. They were so sharp and white. "I'm Principal Morrison. You must be our visitors from the Zentari Educational Council." "Yes," Zelfin replied, his translation device changing his words into human language. "I am Professor Zelfin. These are my research assistants, Piptal and Quinnell. We are here to observe your teaching methods with great interest." Principal Morrison led them into the building. The walls were covered with colorful pictures and what looked like battle plans drawn by young hands. Zelfin saw images of stick, figures holding weapons, maps of territories marked with different colors, and charts showing various tactical formations. "These are student projects," Principal Morrison explained when she noticed the aliens staring at the walls. "The children love to draw and create stories about adventures and games." Games. Zelfin made a note in his device. Human children practiced warfare through games. This was already valuable information. They walked down a long hallway filled with small humans. The children moved in groups, talking loudly and bumping into each other without seeming to mind. Zelfin noticed how aware they were of their surroundings. Even while talking, their eyes constantly moved, watching everything around them. Their heads turned quickly toward any new sound. These were the instincts of natural hunters. "Here's our fourth grade classroom," Principal Morrison said, stopping at an open door. "Mr. Patterson has been teaching here for 8 years. He's excited to show you how we work with the children." They entered a room filled with small humans sitting at desks. The humans looked up at the alien visitors with bright, curious eyes. Zelfin was struck by how alert they appeared. Even sitting still, they seemed ready to move quickly if needed. A tall human male walked over to greet them. This one was clearly a combat instructor. His shoulders were broad, his stance was balanced, and his eyes held the steady look of someone trained for battle. "Welcome," the male human said. "I'm Jake Patterson. These are my students." He gestured toward the small humans, who were now staring openly at the alien visitors. "Kids, say hello to our guests from space." "Hello." The children called out together, their voices strong and clear, like soldiers responding to their commander. Jake Patterson began the morning lesson, something he called mathematics. But Zelfin quickly realized this was actually strategic training disguised as number work. The children solved problems about dividing resources, calculating distances, and determining time intervals. These were exactly the skills a military unit would need for planning missions. Emma Rodriguez, a small human with dark hair, raised her hand to answer a question about calculating supply needs for a camping trip. Her answer was quick and correct. Zelfin noted that human children could perform complex battlefield logistics in their heads. Tyler Brooks, who sat near the window, solved the problem about measuring the area of different shapes. But Zelfin saw this for what it really was: training in territory assessment and space control. Sophie Williams worked through a challenge about timing and speed, figuring out how long it would take to travel between different points. This was clearly preparation for tactical movement and mission planning. The morning continued with more lessons. Reading involved stories about characters facing dangerous situations and making quick decisions. Writing exercises had the children create plans for group projects that sounded remarkably like mission briefings. Science lessons taught them about force, motion, and energy, all essential knowledge for combat situations. As the morning progressed, Zelfin became more and more impressed with the human education system. Every lesson seemed designed to build the mental skills needed for survival and tactical thinking. The children learned quickly, worked together naturally, and showed the kind of focus that took Centauri students years to develop. Then Jake Patterson made an announcement that made all three aliens pay attention. "All right, everyone," he said. "Time to get ready for recess." The children jumped up from their desks with sudden energy. They moved toward the door in an organized way that reminded Zelfin of troops preparing for deployment. Their excitement was clear, but it was controlled and purposeful. "What is this recess?" Zelfin asked Principal Morrison. "Oh, that's when the children go outside to play," she replied. "It's important for them to get fresh air and exercise. They love it." Zelfin felt a chill of anticipation. If the classroom lessons were this advanced, what would the outdoor training be like? The sound of a bell rang through the school building. Instantly, every human child in Jake Patterson's classroom stood up at the same time. Their movements were quick and precise, like soldiers responding to a battle signal. Zelfin watched in amazement as they formed neat lines without being told what to do. "Outside time," Jake Patterson announced. "Remember the rules we talked about." Rules. Zelfin made another note. Even their recreational activities had tactical guidelines. Children walked down the hallway in formation. Zelfin noticed how they maintained spacing between each other, never bumping or pushing despite their obvious excitement. This was clearly advanced crowd control training disguised as simple walking. Principal Morrison led the three Centauri visitors toward a door marked with symbols that Zelfin's translator read as playground exit. Through the glass, he could see a large open area with strange metal structures and wide spaces covered in soft green material. "This is where the children spend their recess time," Principal Morrison explained. "We have about 30 minutes for them to play and get their energy out before afternoon classes." Play, get their energy out. Zelfin wondered what kind of intense physical training the humans called by these innocent names. The door opened, and the children burst outside like troops deploying from a transport vehicle. But instead of chaos, Zelfin saw immediate organization. Without any adult giving orders, the young humans split into groups and spread across the area in what looked like a planned tactical deployment. "By the cosmic void," Piptol whispered, his recording device shaking in his thin hands. "Look at their formation patterns." Emma Rodriguez had taken control of one group near a set of tall metal structures. She was pointing to different areas and giving what sounded like mission briefings to her squad. Her team members nodded seriously and took positions around the area she had marked out. "That appears to be a command structure exercise," Quino sighed, making rapid notes. "The small human female has assumed leadership and is directing troop placement." On the other side of the area, Tyler Brooks was organizing a completely different kind of operation. He had gathered about 15 children in a large circle. One child stood in the center, holding a round object that looked like some kind of projectile weapon. "Combat training drill," Zelfin murmured, watching the display with growing concern and respect. "They're teaching projectile accuracy and evasion techniques." The child in the center suddenly threw the round object at one of the others in the circle. Zelfin expected to see injury, but instead, the target child moved with lightning speed, bending and twisting to avoid the projectile. The throw was hard and fast, but the young human dodged it like a seasoned warrior. "Again," Tyler Brooks called out, "faster this time." Another child picked up the projectile and threw it at a different target. This time, the target child caught the object in mid-air with one hand while jumping backward. The other children cheered and shouted what sounded like tactical encouragement. "Incredible reflexes," Piptol said, his voice full of awe. "That young human just performed a defensive maneuver that would challenge our best military specialists." Near the metal climbing structures, Sophie Williams was leading what could only be described as assault training. Children climbed up metal bars, swung from hanging ropes, and moved across elevated platforms with the skill of Special Forces operatives. They called out directions to each other, timing their movements to avoid collisions while maintaining maximum speed. "Watch the coordination," Quino pointed out. "They're executing complex three-dimensional movement patterns while maintaining team communication. This is advanced tactical training." But what disturbed Zelfin the most was how much the children seemed to enjoy these combat exercises. They laughed while dodging projectiles. They cheered when someone successfully completed a climbing challenge. They celebrated tactical victories with obvious joy. This was not the grim determination of forced military training. These young humans genuinely loved practicing warfare. "Capture the flag," Emma Rodriguez shouted from her position near the metal structures. "Red team and blue team. Same rules as always." Immediately, the children divided into two distinct units. Zelfin watched in fascination as natural leaders emerged in both groups. Strategies were discussed in quick whispers. Scouts were sent to examine the terrain. Defensive positions were established around two different colored pieces of cloth that had been attached to tall poles. "This is territorial warfare simulation," Zelfin said to his companions. "They're practicing invasion, defense, and resource capture." The blue team, led by a small human named Marcus Chon, sent out what were clearly reconnaissance scouts. These children moved low and quiet, using the metal playground equipment as cover while they studied the red team's positions. Meanwhile, the red team had positioned guards around their flag and set up what looked like patrol routes. Emma Rodriguez coordinated their defense with hand signals that reminded Zelfin of military communication he had seen in historical war documentaries. "Attack formation," Marcus Chon whispered to his team, but loud enough for the aliens to hear. "Jake and Lisa, you go left. Tommy and Sarah, circle around right. I'll create a distraction in the center." Zelfin felt his breathing speed up. He was watching 9-year-old humans plan and execute a coordinated assault with the tactical awareness of trained soldiers. The blue team moved out in perfect synchronization, each member knowing exactly what their role was in the mission. The red team spotted the flanking movement almost immediately. "Incoming from the sides," one of them called out. "They're defensive." Formation shifted smoothly to address the multi-directional threat. What followed was a battle that made Zelthan's military training look like child's play. The young humans used terrain features, created diversions, formed temporary alliances, and adapted their strategies in real time based on changing battlefield conditions. Children tagged each other out of the game with touches that looked gentle, but required incredible speed and accuracy. They communicated with their teammates through calls, gestures, and what appeared to be pre-planned signals. When someone was eliminated, they accepted their defeat with good spirit, but immediately began advising their remaining teammates from the sidelines. "The fallen soldiers become tactical advisors," Piptal observed. "They continue contributing to the mission even after being neutralized." After 10 minutes of intense combat, Marcus Chan successfully penetrated the red team's defenses and captured their flag. His victory was celebrated by both teams, showing that these humans valued skill and strategy over simple team loyalty. "Another round," Emma Rodriguez called out immediately. "Switch teams this time." The children instantly reorganized into new tactical units. Leaders rotated to different groups. Strategies were modified based on lessons learned from the previous engagement. Within seconds, they had reset for another complex military exercise. "They're running continuous training scenarios," Quinnell said, his voice filled with amazement. "Each iteration builds on the previous one, developing more advanced tactics and leadership skills." Zelthan looked around the playground and realized that similar training exercises were happening everywhere. Groups of children were engaged in what his translation device called TAG, clearly pursuit and evasion training. Others played something called hide and seek, which was obviously camouflage and reconnaissance practice. Near the building, a teacher was supervising a group doing what she called jumping rope, rhythmic coordination training that would improve timing and physical conditioning for combat situations. "Principal Morrison," Zelthan said, turning to the human educator. "How often do the children participate in these training exercises?" "Oh, they have recess twice a day," she replied with that tooth-showing smile. "Plus physical education class 3 times a week. Children need lots of physical activity to develop properly. Twice a day, 3 additional sessions per week." These human children were receiving more combat training than most alien military academies provided to their adult soldiers. And they had been doing this since they were barely old enough to walk. Zelthan watched a group of 5-year-olds engage in something called Red Rover, a formation-breaking exercise that required coordinated charges against defensive lines. The smallest humans displayed tactical thinking and physical courage that surpassed anything in Zentari military manuals. As recess time continued, Zelthan realized that everything he thought he knew about human education was wrong. This was not learning disguised as play. This was military training, so advanced and so natural that the humans had forgotten it was military training at all. The second day of observation began with Zelthan and his team arriving at Lincoln Elementary School before the first bell rang. After witnessing the advanced tactical training disguised as recess, the 3 Zentari scientists had spent the entire night reviewing the recordings and preparing more detailed observation equipment. "We must document everything," Zelthan told his assistants as they set up their enhanced recording devices. "The Galactic Council needs to understand the full scope of human combat preparation. No detail is too small." Piptal adjusted his scanner to capture movement patterns and reaction times. "Professor, I analyzed yesterday's footage. The average human child demonstrates physical capabilities that exceed adult Centauri standards by 300%. And their tactical thinking, Quinnell added, checking his behavioral analysis equipment. The speed at which they form strategies, adapt to changing conditions, and coordinate group actions is beyond our current military training programs. Principal Morrison approached them with her characteristic smile. Good morning. I hope you found yesterday's observations helpful. Today, Coach Miller will be working with the 4th grade classes during their physical education period. I thought you might find that interesting. Physical education. Zelfin felt a cold sensation run through his thin frame. If regular recess was advanced combat training, what would specialized physical instruction look like? Coach Miller is our physical education teacher, Principal Morrison continued as she led them through the hallways. He has a background in sports and fitness training. The children love working with him. They entered a large indoor space with high ceilings and smooth floors. Strange equipment lined the walls, ropes hanging from the ceiling, metal bars at different heights, and various objects that looked like training weapons. The smell of physical exertion hung in the air. A tall, muscular human male walked toward them. His build was even more impressive than Jake Patterson's, with broad shoulders and arms that showed clear muscle definition. This was obviously an elite combat instructor. Welcome, the human said, extending his hand in the human greeting ritual. I'm Danny Miller. Ready to see what these kids can do? Before Zelfin could respond, the door burst open and 30 human children entered the space. They moved with energy and purpose, immediately spreading out across the floor in formation patterns that would make military drill sergeants proud. All right, everyone, Coach Miller called out. Let's start with our warm-up exercises. The children began moving in synchronized patterns. They jumped, stretched, and twisted their bodies in ways that demonstrated incredible flexibility and control. Zelfin watched in amazement as even the smallest humans performed movements that would challenge adult Centauri athletes. This is basic conditioning, Quinnell whispered, his recording device capturing every detail. They're preparing their bodies for more intensive combat training. Line up for rope climbing, Coach Miller announced, pointing to thick ropes hanging from the ceiling. One by one, the children approached the ropes. Sophie Williams went first, grabbing the rough material with her small hands and pulling herself upward with smooth, efficient movements. Her technique was perfect, using her legs to help support her weight while her arms provided the climbing. Power. Look at her grip strength, Piptol said, his voice full of awe. She's supporting her entire body weight with just her hands and forearms. Sophie reached the top of the rope in less than 30 seconds, touching a marker near the ceiling, before sliding back down in a controlled descent. The other children cheered her accomplishment while waiting for their own turns. Marcus Chun climbed next, using a slightly different technique, but achieving the same impressive result. Then Tyler Brooks, who showed exceptional upper body strength. For his age, even the smaller children completed the climb, some taking longer, but none giving up. Excellent work, Coach Miller called out. Remember, it's not about being the fastest. It's about completing the challenge and improving your personal best. Personal best. Zelfin noted this phrase. Human combat training included individual performance goals alongside team objectives. This created soldiers who could excel both in group operations and solo missions. The next exercise involved what Coach Miller called obstacle courses. The children had to crawl under low barriers, climb over tall ones, balance on narrow beams, and navigate through complex paths that required agility, coordination, and problem-solving skills. Emma Rodriguez attacked the course with tactical precision, analyzing each obstacle before engaging with it. She moved with economy of motion, never wasting energy on unnecessary movements. Her approach to each challenge showed the kind of battlefield awareness that took adult Zentari soldiers years to develop. She's treating each obstacle like a combat scenario, Zelfin observed. Calculate the approach, execute the movement, assess the result, and move to the next objective. But what truly amazed the Zentari was how the children encouraged each other. When a smaller child struggled with a difficult obstacle, larger children offered advice and support. When someone succeeded, everyone celebrated. This was not the harsh competition of typical military training, but rather a system that built both individual capability and group cohesion. Team building time, Coach Miller announced. King of the Hill. The children gathered around a large raised platform covered in soft material. The rules were simple. One person defended the high ground while others attempted to claim it. Victory was achieved by maintaining control of the elevated position. Tyler Brooks climbed onto the platform first, establishing his defensive position. Immediately, a coordinated assault began from multiple directions. 3 children approached from different angles, forcing Tyler to divide his attention and defensive efforts. The battle was intense but controlled. Children pushed and pulled, trying to unbalance their opponents without causing injury. Tyler showed impressive tactical awareness, using his position advantage to fend off attacks while looking for opportunities to counterattack. When on fighty, Emma Rodriguez finally managed to claim the platform. She immediately had to defend against a new wave of challengers. Her strategy was different from Tyler's. She used movement and positioning rather than strength, staying mobile and keeping her opponents off balance. Advanced territorial control training, Quinnell noted. They're learning to hold strategic positions under pressure while managing multiple threats simultaneously. The exercise continued with different children taking turns as defenders. Each one developed unique strategies based on their individual strengths and weaknesses. Some relied on speed and agility, others on strength and positioning. The variety of approaches created a rich training environment where multiple tactical styles were practiced and refined. After King of the Hill, Coach Miller introduced a new exercise called Capture and Defend. 2 teams were formed, each responsible for protecting a designated area while attempting to infiltrate the opposing team's territory. The objective was to touch a target object in the enemy zone and return to safety. The tactical complexity was stunning. Teams assigned roles: guards, scouts, assault specialists, and coordinators. They developed signals for communication, planned diversionary tactics, and executed complex multi-phase operations. Marcus Chun's team used a brilliant strategy, where they sent obvious scouts to draw defensive attention while their real assault team approached from an unexpected angle. The coordination required split-second timing and perfect trust between team members. They're practicing advanced special operations techniques, Zelfin said, his voice filled with admiration and concern. These 9-year-old humans are more tactically sophisticated than our elite military units. The defending team, led by Sophie Williams, adapted quickly to the assault. They repositioned their guards, set up counter-ambush positions, and nearly succeeded in capturing the attacking scouts. The level of strategic thinking displayed by both teams would have impressed seasoned military commanders. Throughout all these exercises, Coach Miller provided guidance and encouragement, but never direct tactical instruction. The children developed their own strategies, learned from their mistakes, and improved their techniques through practice and experimentation. The instructor is not teaching them specific combat techniques, Piptal observed. He's creating conditions where they develop tactical thinking naturally. As the physical education session continued, Zelfin realized that human combat training was even more sophisticated than he had initially thought. These children were not just learning individual fighting skills or even team tactics. They were developing the kind of adaptive, creative, strategic thinking that produced natural military leaders. When the class ended and the children began leaving the gymnasium, they were still discussing strategies and techniques with each other. Their conversations revealed deep understanding of tactical principles, leadership concepts, and strategic planning. Coach Miller, Zelthan approached the human instructor. These exercises you conduct with the children, how long have they been part of your educational system? Oh, physical education has been around for decades, Coach Miller replied. Kids need physical challenges to develop properly. It builds confidence, teamwork, and problem-solving skills. Plus, they have fun while getting exercise. The great meeting hall of the Centauri Educational Council had never been so quiet. Professor Zelthan stood at the center of the circular chamber, surrounded by hundreds of alien educators from across the galaxy. His hands shook slightly as he activated the holographic display that would show his findings from Earth. Honored colleagues, Zelthan began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. What I am about to present will change how we understand human society, human education, and perhaps most importantly, how we understand ourselves. The first image appeared in the air above the assembly. Children playing capture, the flag on the Lincoln Elementary playground. To the alien observers, it looked like a perfectly executed military operation. This is what humans call recess, Zelthan explained. 29 minutes of tactical training that occurs twice daily in every human educational facility across their planet. Gasps and worried whispers filled the chamber. Council leader Veltar, an ancient being from the peaceful Mollusk Confederation, raised a trembling appendage. Professor Zelthan, are you telling us that human children receive military instruction as part of their basic education? That is exactly what I am telling you, Zelthan replied. But it is far more complex than simple military instruction. The humans have created something that no other species has achieved. They have made warfare training indistinguishable from natural childhood development. The next series of images showed kindergarten children playing musical chairs, duck, duck, goose, and red light, green light. To the alien observers, these looked like advanced strategic exercises designed to build tactical thinking and rapid response capabilities. These activities, Zelthan continued, are not recent innovations created by military planners. They are ancient human traditions, passed down through generations for hundreds of years. The humans developed this system naturally, without conscious planning. Piptol stepped forward with additional data displays. Our analysis shows that human children demonstrate physical and tactical capabilities that exceed adult standards in most galactic species. By age 5, they possess strategic thinking skills that our military academies struggle to teach. A representative from the Crystalline Shard Empire spoke up, his voice ringing like broken glass. This explains much about human expansion into our sectors. We thought they were simply aggressive by nature. But they are not aggressive. They are prepared. Precisely, Zelthan confirmed. Every human has undergone approximately 15 years of unconscious combat training before they reach adulthood. They do not see themselves as warriors because to them, being a warrior is simply being human. Quinnell activated a behavioral analysis chart that showed tactical decision-making patterns. Most remarkable is that human children enjoy this training. They compete eagerly for opportunities to participate in what they call games. They have evolved to find military preparation entertaining. What about their adult military forces? Asked a delegate from the Arthropod Hive Collective. If their children are this capable, what are their trained soldiers like? We have reviewed available data on human military units, Zelthan replied grimly. Their professional soldiers are essentially enhanced versions of capabilities that every human civilian already possesses. Where other species must break down civilian thinking to build military mindset, humans simply refine what is already there. The implications settled over the assembly like a heavy blanket. Species that had considered themselves militarily superior to the young human civilization were realizing that they had been comparing their best soldiers to what humans considered ordinary citizens. There is more, Zelthan continued, calling up images of adult humans engaged in what they called sports. Human recreational activities for adults follow the same pattern. They compete in organized warfare simulations for entertainment. They call it football, basketball, hockey, and other names. But these are clearly tactical training exercises that humans perform voluntarily throughout their entire lives. A representative from the aquatic depth dwellers made a sound like rushing. Water. Are you saying that humans never stop training for combat? They never stop, Zelthan confirmed. But they do not think of it as combat training. They think of it as fun. Council leader Veltar requested permission to examine the raw footage from the human school. For several minutes, the assembly watched in silence as Emma Rodriguez led her team through complex tactical maneuvers while laughing with obvious joy. By the deep currents, the depth dweller representative whispered. They achieve tactical excellence while experiencing pleasure. This is beyond our understanding. The question before us, Zelthan said, is how we respond to this information. Some species may wish to study human methods for potential adaptation. Others may need to reconsider their diplomatic and defense strategies. A heated debate erupted across the chamber. Some delegates argued for immediate implementation of human-style education in their own societies. Others worried about the cultural implications of turning their peaceful children into unconscious warriors. A representative from the warlike Krekstar Empire was particularly vocal. We demand access to these human training methods. Our military effectiveness could increase dramatically with proper implementation of these techniques. With respect, replied the delegate from the gentle flower people, introducing combat. Training to our young would violate the core principles of our civilization. We achieved peace by rejecting such practices. Yet the humans achieved peace through strength, Zelthan pointed out. They have ended warfare on their own planet, not through rejection of combat, but through making every citizen too dangerous to attack carelessly. This observation sparked another round of intense discussion. Species that had achieved peace through pacifism were confronted with a civilization that had achieved peace through universal warrior training. There is something else, Quinnell announced, calling for attention. We have analyzed human population data and discovered that their educational system produces not just capable individuals, but natural leaders at every level of society. Explain, demanded Council Leader Veltar. Human children rotate through leadership roles during their training games, Quinnell explained. Sometimes they lead, sometimes they follow, always they learn. By adulthood, every human has extensive experience in both command and subordinate positions. Their entire species consists of trained leaders. The silence that followed this revelation was profound. Most galactic civilizations struggled to produce enough capable leaders for their societies. The humans had accidentally created a species where leadership was a basic life skill. Professor Zelthan, said a delegate from the insectoid swarm. Clusters. What recommendation do you make to this council? Zelthan had prepared for this question, but the answer still felt overwhelming to speak aloud. I recommend that we fundamentally revise our assessment of human civilization, he said. They are not a young, aggressive species that got lucky with rapid expansion. They are the most naturally militarized population in galactic history, and they achieved this state through cultural evolution, not conscious planning. And this makes them dangerous? Asked the council leader. No, Zelthan replied after a long pause. This makes them incredibly safe to be around, if you are their friend. Every human child learns not just how to fight, but when to fight, how to cooperate, and how to show mercy to defeated opponents. They are warriors, but they are honorable warriors. And if you are their enemy? Pressed another delegate. Zelthan thought about watching Emma Rodriguez adapt her strategies in real time, about seeing Kevin Martinez make tactical decisions that impressed military experts, about observing 5-year-olds coordinate complex operations while laughing with joy. If you are their enemy, Zelthan said quietly, you are facing an entire species of natural soldiers who think strategic combat is the most entertaining activity in the universe. They will defeat you, and they will enjoy doing it. The final vote was unanimous. The Galactic Educational Council would classify human educational methods as advanced military development through cultural integration, and would recommend that all member species carefully study human approaches to childhood development. Privately, in his personal logs, Zelthan wrote a different conclusion. We have discovered that the humans solved a problem we did not know existed. They created a civilization where every citizen is a warrior, every warrior is a leader, and every leader remembers how to play. They turned survival into art and art into joy. We call them Deathworlders, but perhaps we should call them something else. Perhaps we should call them the species that learned how to make peace through strength and strength through laughter. As news of the report spread through galactic civilization, 3 responses emerged. Some species began carefully studying human educational methods. Others increased their diplomatic efforts to ensure good relationships with Earth. And a few, the wisest ones, simply sent delegations to ask humans if they would be willing to teach alien children how to play their games. The humans, of course, were delighted to help. Fun, exercise, problem-solving skills. The humans had see Professor Zelthan could not sleep on the 3rd night of his visit to Lincoln Elementary School. The data his team had collected was beyond anything the Galactic Educational Council had expected. Human children were not just physically capable, they were tactically brilliant, naturally cooperative, and seemed to treat complex combat scenarios as entertainment. The next morning, Zelthan made a decision that would change everything. Instead of observing from a distance, he would speak directly with the human educators about what he had witnessed. He needed to understand how the humans had developed such an advanced military training system without seeming to realize what they had created. Principal Morrison, Zelthan said as they met in her office, I must discuss some concerns about the combat training I have observed in your educational facility. Principal Morrison looked confused. Combat training? I'm not sure what you mean, Professor Zelthan. We don't have any military programs here at Lincoln Elementary. The tactical exercises your students perform during recess periods, Zelthan explained carefully. The physical conditioning under Coach Miller's supervision, the strategic thinking activities in the classrooms. These are clearly advanced warfare preparation programs. Oh, Principal Morrison said with a laugh that showed her teeth. You mean our regular school activities? Playing games, physical education, group projects. Those aren't military training. They're just normal parts of childhood development. Normal parts of childhood development. Zelthan felt his understanding of human society shift dramatically. What his species would consider elite military education, humans saw as basic requirements for raising healthy children. Perhaps, Zelthan said slowly, you could show me some of your youngest students. I would like to observe how this development begins. Principal Morrison smiled and led him down a hallway decorated with colorful drawings and simple writing. I'd be happy to introduce you to our kindergarten class. Mrs. Murphy has been teaching 5-year-olds for 15 years. She's wonderful. With the little ones. They entered a room filled with tiny humans who barely reached Zelthan's waist. These were the youngest trainees in the human system, and Zelthan was curious to see what kind of basic instruction they received. Mrs. Murphy was a small human female with gray hair and kind eyes. She welcomed the aliens warmly and explained that her students were just finishing their morning learning activities. Time for circle games, Mrs. Murphy announced to the children. The tiny humans immediately formed a perfect circle on a colorful carpet. Their positioning was exact, with equal spacing between each child. Even at 5 years old, they understood formation discipline. Let's play musical chairs, Mrs. Murphy said, setting up small chairs in a line. Remember the rules we practiced. Musical chairs. Zelfin activated his recording device as he watched 20 children compete for 19 seats. Music played from a small device, and the children walked around the chairs in a controlled pattern. When the music stopped, they moved with lightning speed to claim available positions. What Zelfin witnessed was not a simple game, but a complex exercise in resource scarcity management, competitive awareness, and rapid decision-making under pressure. The children had to maintain situational awareness while appearing relaxed, judge distances and timing perfectly, and execute quick movements without injuring others. Kevin Martinez, a small boy with dark hair, demonstrated tactical thinking that amazed the Zentari observer. Kevin positioned himself near chairs that other children were avoiding, calculated the optimal moment to make his move, and secured his position with efficient movements that wasted no energy. Excellent strategic positioning, Piptal whispered, recording Kevin's movements. That young human showed battlefield awareness superior to our military academy graduates. When children were eliminated from the game, they showed remarkable emotional control. No tears, no anger, just acceptance of the tactical situation and immediate transition to supporting their remaining teammates with advice and encouragement. Duck, duck, goose, Mrs. Murphy announced as the next activity. The children formed another circle, this time sitting on the floor. One child walked around the outside, touching others on the head while saying either duck or goose. When goose was called, the selected child had to chase the first child around the circle, trying to tag them before they could claim the empty seat. Zelfin realized he was watching advanced surveillance and counter-surveillance training. The walking child had to assess each potential target, make strategic choices about timing and positioning, and execute an escape plan under pressure. The chosen goose had to react instantly to an unexpected threat and engage in high-speed pursuit. Tactics. Little Sarah Kim showed exceptional skills when selected as the walking child. She varied her pace unpredictably, making it difficult for seated children to anticipate her choice. When she finally selected her target, she had already planned her escape route and executed it with precision that would impress professionals. Infiltration experts. These 5-year-old humans possess tactical capabilities that exceed our adult population, Quinnell noted, his voice filled with awe and concern. The morning continued with more activities that Zelfin now recognized as sophisticated training exercises. Simon Says was clearly command structure and order-following instruction, teaching children to distinguish between legitimate and false commands while maintaining rapid response capabilities. Red light, green light was obviously impulse control and movement discipline training. Children had to maintain forward progress toward an objective while remaining ready to freeze instantly when conditions changed. The level of body control and mental discipline required was extraordinary. During snack time, Zelfin observed the children's social interactions. Even while eating, they maintained awareness of their surroundings, shared resources efficiently, and organized themselves into small groups with natural leadership structures emerging. Mrs. Murphy, Zelfin said during a quiet moment, how do you determine which children should participate in leadership roles during these activities? Oh, I don't choose leaders, Mrs. Murphy replied. The children work that out themselves. Some are natural organizers. Others prefer to follow. Some are good at physical challenges. Others excel at thinking games. Every child has different strengths. Natural organizers. Different strengths. The humans were not forcing their children into rigid military hierarchies, but rather allowing organic leadership development based on individual capabilities and situational needs. This created flexible, adaptive command structures that could function in any environment. After lunch, Zelthan requested to observe even younger children. Principal Morrison took him to the preschool area where 3- and 4-year-old humans were engaged in what the teachers called free play. What Zelthan saw defied everything he thought he knew about child development. These tiny humans, barely able to speak in complete sentences, were engaging in complex social negotiations, resource management, and collaborative problem-solving that would challenge adult Zentari intellectuals. 3-year-old Amy Chun was building a structure with colorful blocks while coordinating with 2 other children to create what was clearly a defensive fortification. They discussed design elements, shared materials, and adapted their plans based on available resources. "Look at the spatial reasoning," Piptal observed. "They're calculating structural integrity, resource allocation, and defensive positioning while barely old enough to walk steadily." 4-year-old Ben Rodriguez was leading a group in what the teachers called pretend play. But Zelthan recognized it as tactical simulation training. The children assigned roles, developed mission objectives, and executed coordinated activities that required communication, timing, and strategic thinking. "We're going on a bear hunt," Ben announced, and immediately the other children formed a search formation. They discussed terrain challenges, equipment needs, and group safety protocols before beginning their mission. As the day progressed, Zelthan realized that human combat training began almost from birth. Every game, every activity, every social interaction was building the skills that would eventually make humans the most formidable species in the galaxy. But the most shocking revelation came during his final conversation with Mrs. Murphy. "These activities you do with the children," Zelthan asked, "how long have they been part of human education?" "Oh, children have always played games like these," Mrs. Murphy replied. "These are traditional activities that have been passed down for generations. Some of them are hundreds of years old. Children naturally create games that help them learn and grow. Hundreds of years. The humans had been unconsciously training their children for combat for centuries, perhaps longer. What Zelthan had thought was a recently developed military education system was actually an ancient cultural tradition that had evolved naturally to prepare human children for survival on their dangerous world. Do other species not have similar activities for their young? Mrs. Murphy asked innocently. Zelthan thought about Centauri children who spent their early years in quiet study and gentle contemplation. Young Centauri learned through observation and instruction, never through physical competition or strategic games. The contrast was staggering.